For Mr. Evan M. Landry!
Hey everyone. Thanks, Dad. For those of you who may not realize, the disembodied voice coming from the back is my father, Landry, who just pumped my tires a little bit.
Hey, nepotism works, son.
Anyway, those of you who were here last time may remember his 2-minute monologue about masturbation. Those of you who weren't here last time and were lucky enough to have missed that, Landry, my father, did a 2-minute monologue about masturbation. Now, one of the only things more awkward in listening to your father talk about masturbation is having him casually recall the position in which you were conceived in. That happened. This last Father's Day, I generously took him out for brunch and made the grievous error of thanking him for the part he played in my existence. To which he responded with a graphic description of how it went down. Trust me, that is one thing that you never, ever want to know about yourself. Anyway, I better ease off on old Raymondo before I get kicked to the curb because since I took political science, whatever the hell that is, and work in the film industry, I still live at home. 23 years old and living the dream. So yeah, I grew up in the Junction, and as such, I've witnessed its transition over the years. From sketchy-ass neighborhood to up-and-coming sketchy-ass neighborhood to overpriced and gentrified yuppie neighborhood with small pockets of sketchiness that persist. People used to know the Junction because their drug dealer lived here, or they used to pick up their hookers down the street from Shox at Dundas West and Indian Grove, or their sketchy cousin was stabbed in the alleyway behind coffee time. Now people know the Junction because there's a cute little bakery down the street, or there's a great place to get brunch, or their dog goes to doggy daycare here. Sadly, the Junction's losing a lot of that flair, that gritty edginess that I've really come to love over the years. But luckily, the underbelly of society's been able to maintain a stranglehold. Not necessarily a stranglehold, but just a little bit of retaliation to the gentrification of the area. There's still an ever-present contingency of alcoholics, homeless people, and those people with neck tattoos that walk those vicious-looking dogs on the ends of chained leashes. You know what I'm talking about. Anyway, you know the Junction's a great area when you realize that you buy your fresh produce from a farmer's market that on the same street only 2 weeks earlier you were offered a blowjob for bus fare. I realize you're thinking that sounds incredibly hackneyed, but that actually has happened to me more than once in the Junction. Apparently crackheads aren't too concerned about coming off as cliche. For the record, it was a fucking ripoff. Bad memories. Really though, I mean, I love the Junction. Where else in society can you buy your fair trade organic coffee on the same corner that you get your crystal meth? I grew up a couple of blocks from here on Indian Road, the root of the trifecta of politically incorrect street names in the area. Indian Road, Indian Grove, and Indian Road Crescent. Not only did the man who created all these names lack creativity, he was also slightly racist, and clearly hated anyone who would ever have to navigate this area for the first time. Has anyone ever seen 582 Indian Road? It's a house. I hope the person that lives there is here, because that'd be awesome. It's a house down Indian Road, and their sign is just 582, and then the picture of a native person in a headdress, and then road. It's amazing. It's like this last vestige of blatant racism this man should persist in our society. I mean, I don't even know if I'm being politically correct by saying native person, but I can tell you one thing. I could say Injun or Nate, and I'd still be less blatantly racist than a lot of the sports teams in North America. I mean, talk about adding insult to injury. I mean, it's not like the First Nations haven't had it tough over the last 100 years. I mean, first it's blankets covered in smallpox, and now it's sports jerseys covered in racism. I mean, I went to McGill University, and our team name was the Redmen. That's not okay. That's not okay. And like Washington Redskins, Chicago Blackhawks, Cleveland Indians, Washington's the capital of the United States of America, and their football team is called the Redskins. I mean, I'm no expert, but I'm pretty sure Redskins an ethnic slur. Cleveland Indians, their logo is just an Indian person smiling. Like, that's awful. And it's honestly the equivalent of having a team called the Toronto Africans and just having big old blackface as their logo. Objectively, it's just a little bit twisted. And now it's starting to make me wonder a little bit about what's up with the Cleveland Browns. Anyway, for those of you who know me, or those of you here that have had the displeasure of shaking my hand at one point or another, you'll know that I suffer from an affliction. It's called hyperhidrosis, or in layman's terms, my hands are sweaty as fuck. And I'm not talking about like a little bit clammy, that's weird and uncomfortable. I'm talking like dripping, gross sweat. Like, it's disgusting. It's awful. It's called hyperhidrosis, and if that sounds gross, it's because it is gross. Yeah, anyway, I've had to live with this my whole life, and you know, sometimes in the winter I get a brief respite where I go through a dry spell, but the summers are rough. I mean, they're a complete write-off. It's like the last 3 days, I've had to drink like 10 times more glasses of water than a normal person just to stay hydrated. As living with this my whole life, I've kind of grown to be very wary and terrified of handshakes and any introductions with people. So as a result, I've kind of developed strategies to avoid shaking people's hands. I'll often bring it in for the real thing before it's reached that point in a friendship. You know, just going for a big old hug. And you know, it may be a little bit weird, but I can tell you what, it'd be a lot weirder if you have to feel my sweaty palm pressed up against your hand. Ugh. Sorry for the imagery. Anyway, another thing I like to do is sometimes I'll awkwardly turn it into props, which is fun because I'm white as fuck, and like anything more than a handshake is just a disaster. So it's like, yeah, what up? Hey, what the hell is he doing? Like, what's going on here? My favorite is that at parties or any other time I can really, I'll hold a cold beer in my right hand, or a glass of water or whatever. And then when somebody goes in for a handshake, I'll just use the beer as an excuse. I'll be like, oh yes, sorry my hands are so wet. It's this beer that's wetter than any beer has ever been before. And you know, there's a lot of times where I can't avoid it, and I've just got to go for it. I've just got to bite the bullet and shake their hand. And there's several ways that this can go. One, my hands will be dry. This is a miracle. I mean, this rarely happens. But when it does, it's great, and I savor the moment. That was a firm handshake, and he didn't feel uncomfortable. But that's rare because one of the triggers for my sweaty hands, among other things, is that when I think about it, it happens. It knows it's coming. So I can wipe my hands on my pants all I want, but it's right back to square one. Number two is, this is a testament to how the goodness of people in our society. I'll shake hands with someone, and they'll just take it like a champ. They know it's gross. I know they know it's gross. But they just go with it, and we move past it. The third, this is a little bit more uncomfortable, is I shake hands with somebody, and then they immediately wipe their hand on their pants. It's like, wipe it on the pants. I mean, I can see that. I'm right here. I can see you wiping your hand on your pants. It's almost as bad as saying it, but okay, I forgive you. It is disgusting. We'll move past it. Number four, and this is the worst one, is when I shake someone's hand, they have absolutely no tact, and they just go, oh, what's wrong with your hand? Why is it so wet? And you know, I can move past this when I'm alone and just like one-on-one with somebody, but when it's in a group and the other people that I just shook hands with, maybe a wiper or ignorer, are starting to like support the guy, and they're like, yeah, why is your hand so wet? What's up with that? It's like, what can I say? I have hyperhidrosis. It fucking sucks. You know how hard elementary school was? Like when the pinnacle of sexual interaction was hand-holding? Honestly, it was like the equivalent of being impotent. A lot of people ask me, they're like, have you looked for a cure? Of course I've looked for a cure. I live with this shit every day. It prevents me from doing normal things without having it be an adventure. Every time I write on a piece of paper, I'm scared I'm going to smear the ink or melt the page. It's completely prevented me from entering any of the awesome careers like massage or being a chiropractor or doctor. Not that I necessarily wanted to do those things, but I didn't want the option to be completely weighed out. But after consulting a perspiration management specialist, and for those of you who like acronyms, it's PMS, I have discovered that my only recourse is Botox. Woo, great, Botox. Okay, so my biggest concern about Botox, aside from the fact that I could lose all feeling in my hands, is where's it gonna go? Like, the sweat's not just gonna disappear, it's probably gonna get rerouted somewhere else in my body. So I'm going to be going from having the sweatiest hands ever to having the sweatiest elbows or forearms or something else, and I don't want that. Anyway, thanks. You guys have been a great audience. If you want to come say hi to me after the show, you can come to the bar and shake my hand or give me a hug or props. Or, you know.